Welcome to What Do You Want to Do, the show that will hopefully help you figure out what you want to do in life or reconnect you to what you love doing. Each show has a guest who is doing what they want to do, whether it's in their career or in addition to their regular job. Most importantly, we want to help you realize that no matter your age, you too can do what you want to do if you have the will to do it. Now here's your host, Leonard Caplan.
This week on What Do You Want to Do, the first of a fascinating three-part series with Sarah Infini Takagi. Sarah does so many things. She's a classical pianist and a piano teacher and a jazz singer and a comedian. She does Reiki. She's very spiritual and a great conversationalist, as will be evident by the hour and a half that we recorded. The first of which I'm only going to show and play a half an hour of it. Now, we touched upon so many things: her near-death experience, her relationship with the piano, and a fascinating experience that she happened to tell me about only because I made an offhand comment about how one of her CDs affected me when I first listened to it. This is definitely worth a listen. Stay tuned. You won't believe what you hear. Welcome back to What Do You Want to Do? And my special guest today is a pianist, a songwriter, a comedian, a jazz singer, and an all-around improvisational artist, Sarah Infini Takagi. Welcome to the show.
Yay! I'm hoping to do a louder clap, but I know we had some audio issues, so
Yeah,
normally that would have been a very loud clap of joy and excitement and gratitude for having me on your show. Thank you so much for inviting me. I'm so excited.
Well, thank you. I know how busy you are all the time doing so many rehearsals, and you teach as well.
Yeah.
And just so many things that you do. And What Do You Want to Do is a show where we try to figure out, where does all this come from? How does this person come to all of this talent and success and drive, and where did it all come from? When did it start? That's the big question. So that's the first question I'm going to ask you right now. Did you always know that you wanted to do something in the arts?
For that answer, I'm going to say no. I absolutely did not.
Wow.
I think the best way to gain a more clear perspective today is to discuss the difference of culture between Japan, where I'm originally from, and America. And I happen to be lucky enough to have lived in both countries. And the most important part for all listeners and viewers is to understand that Japan and United States have a fundamentally different way of life, which means that the way of thinking and the way that a child is raised, which is I was raised by Japanese parents, makes everything very different, just the context. So to start with, I started playing the piano when I was 5 years old, not because I asked for the piano lessons, but because I was pretty much forced to play piano, because it's pretty much as actually everybody would know, it's an Asian thing. It's Asian kids take piano lessons. So it was definitely something I just did out of being forced to do so as a child. And apparently I became pretty good at it. And that's how I accidentally started participating in the arts, music being part of the arts.
Well, you're more than just pretty good at it, because when I first met you and I bought your CD, when I took it home, it actually put tears in my eyes.
Aw,
No music ever does that to me.
that
Very,
is
very few.
amazing. Oh, that's so sweet, Leonard. Thank you so much.
And
So
the
sweet.
only other time that it happened actually was this week,
Oh,
when
really?
our mutual friend Aaron Caplan,
Oh, Aaron, he's so amazing.
yes, he played a Van Halen piece after Van Halen passed
Oh,
away,
wow.
and that did the same thing. It had
Oh
been
my Lord.
with yours. It happened in 2012. With me, it happened
Yeah.
last week or 2 days
Oh
ago. Yeah.
my God.
So there's
Yeah.
only
Yeah. And
specific things can
yeah.
do that to me. So
Yeah.
you have a real gift, you know.
Wow. Well, but I actually would like to comment on that, Leonard, because I believe there were deliberate, intentional things that was part of that recording that I could share with the viewers and listeners is the fact that Leonard, you listened to my Lavender Bouquet CD piano album,
Yes.
which being a concert classical pianist was not a usual album. Actually initially when I was given the opportunity to record for free in Jordan Hall, which for all viewers is one of the greatest concert halls apparently in the world for its intimate acoustics, and it's located in part of the New England Conservatory building in Boston. But it's also a concert hall that is leased to world-class musicians from all over the world. Whenever they come for a tour to Boston, they play in Jordan Hall. Very famous musicians all played in there. It's kind of a long story. I'm going to try to make it as short as possible. So I think I'm going to have to talk about my spirituality.
Okay.
My spirituality is a very big, it's going to cut to the chase. My spirituality is the reason for all my motivations, and it's also the purpose of my life. And we'll get to that in a minute, but I'll just cut to the chase. One of the spiritual teachers that I study with is an Indian saint named Paramahansa Yogananda. And he's long ago deceased, I believe in 1951. Correct me if I'm wrong. But anyway, so I follow his teachings. And when I became a faculty at New England Conservatory, I found out that Paramahansa Yogananda, the Indian saint, when he first arrived in the United States, the first town he came to was Boston. And then he actually apparently gave a lecture in Jordan Hall in something like 1921. Again, I'm completely bluffing. I have no idea if it's really, really 1921, but I think I'm close. So it was apparently Paramahansa Yogananda, who's known to have supernatural powers and is what I would call my spiritual guru. He stood on that stage to a packed audience and gave a lecture about spirituality. So to me, when I discovered the fact that my greatest spiritual hero and idol and avatar, I consider him like avatar level, saint had stood there and gave a whole lecture about spirituality, since my goal in creating that album was to also be very spiritual. I had prayed to Paramahansa Yogananda for a blessing for that album. But you know what? That is going to, I'm so sorry, but it's going to also lead to a concert I did very close to the time that I made that album, where I played all these repertoire that I consider extremely sacred, like, for example, Quartet for the End of Time. It's a piece by Olivier Messiaen, who wrote this piece in a concentration camp. And it was a very spiritual piece about his faith. And apparently it was premiered in the concentration camp with broken string cello and broken clarinet, and apparently in front of 5,000 prisoners. I performed that piece in Jordan Hall, as well as other amazing pieces like the Bach Busoni Chaconne, blah, blah, blah. Anyway, so right before I gave that concert, I prayed to Yogananda silently, and I didn't pray out loud. I didn't share with anyone that I was praying to Paramahansa Yogananda, but right before the concert, I was praying fervently for the concert to be blessed so that everybody else who's in the audience will be blessed. In addition, I do another thing called Reiki healing. That's another whole subject, but as a Reiki healer, I had prayed that Reiki, which is a healing energy, be sent out from the piano and the concert hall and from the music. So I did the two things, the Reiki healing and the Yogananda. So this is what happened, which is really, really unbelievable, is when I came out at the beginning of that concert in Jordan Hall, it was a packed hall. One of my friend's son, who I've only known from sight and maybe have one time said hello to, came with his dad, who is more my friend. And he sat and watched the whole concert. And after the concert, the son of my friend came to me and said, Sarah, I need to talk to you. And I said, sure. And he goes, no, we need to go to this corner and I have to tell you something. And I said, okay. And this guy, his name is Micah, and he was a visual artist. He said to me, and this is a guy that I've never talked to. I've never had a conversation with him, except that I know his dad is my friend. He said, when you came out to perform this sacred concert, I saw Paramahansa Yogananda, the Indian saint, standing right next to you.
Wow. Wow.
And this guy, Micah's father, is extremely spiritual man who meditates all the time. And Micah, I heard, was a meditator. And he has been following another Indian saint named Ramana Maharishi, but not Yogananda. But he knew his saints. So apparently when he was ready to watch the concert and I came out, he said literally he saw Paramahansa Yogananda with his long Indian hair standing right next to me. This is not, I mean, this saint has deceased in 1951, but he said he saw this man. And then he heard a voice saying, Micah, you must do a painting of Sarah because of, or I don't know, I think that was it. You must do a painting of Sarah. So he said, Paramahansa Yogananda was there, and then he went into the piano and merged. And that's what happened. And then I had a couple people who I've never met come to me after the concert crying and saying, when you started to play, I started to cry. And they also said something similar to you, like, I've never had this experience before. I came and sat down. As soon as you started to play, I started to cry. And for me, this was the kind of experience that I had in Jordan Hall, where it was unbelievable. My jaws dropped to the floor when Micah, this guy that I don't really know, said, I saw Paramahansa. And I said to him, did you know that I prayed to Paramahansa Yogananda so that this whole concert would be blessed? And his jaws also dropped, saying, oh my God, I'm right. I wasn't hallucinating. And so that was incredible. And now that goes right back to the Lavender Bouquet album that you listened to. What happened was when I was making that album, which was after this concert, I also prayed because at this point, like, I know that prayer works. I'm a big believer in prayer. So I said, okay, I want the angels of healing. I believe in angels of healing. And I want the Reiki and energy to go into this album and the piano and the recording. And I, with my hands, that's where the Reiki energy comes out of. I like literally Reiki the whole piano and the keyboards. And then I prayed and I said, I want this album to be a healing album for listeners and not a piano virtuoso album that's just about showing off. Or, I didn't want it to be a typical regular classical album where you just play Beethoven and Liszt and whatever. I wanted the album to specifically touch listeners in a way that would be healing. So
it did.
Now getting back to you, I'm feeling like I've had other people tell me when they listen, it feels very soothing and healing. So maybe that was why you were touched by the energy of Reiki and maybe the Yogananda's blessing. So that's where I'm going to. Sorry, I talked so long.
No, that was very fascinating.
Yeah.
It's a very when you don't know something, I didn't know any of that background, and
Right.
I was touched by the result of it. And when you explained it, it's just, it kind of leaves me speechless a little bit. You know, I'm known to be kind of a skeptic in specific prayers and this and that. Um, I mean, I'm not an atheist, but I'm the kind of person I want to believe in that stuff. I really do.
Hmm.
But you know, you can't just say, well, I believe in it because I want to.
Right. No, it needs, I'm quite a skeptic too. I mean, I'm a kind of person, if something doesn't work, I'm very practical. I'm not going to use it again. And
Right.
that will include prayer. Like I pray, and if I feel like prayer is usually addressed to the higher entity or God or universe, and you're addressing, basically you're sending an email to God, and you're saying, God, help me with this. But you give him a certain amount of time, and if you don't feel God is helping you in any way,
Right.
you're like, all right, this doesn't work, delete
Right.
the app, right? However, in my life, I've had so many miracles and answers that come out of praying that I basically use the prayer app, so to say.
Right.
Um,
Now, you mentioned this concentration camp story.
yeah, the Messian, Olivier
Right. You
Messiaen.
know, and what I'm thinking of now is, and this happened more than one time with Jewish people in the concentration
Yeah.
camps in the 40s, that they put God on trial because they prayed and prayed. There were very
Yeah.
religious people there,
Yeah.
and it didn't get them out of there. You know
Yeah.
what I mean? So
Yeah.
those people would have a reason, obviously,
Yeah.
to not believe, you know.
Right.
But then there's miraculous stories like what
That
you just
happened.
said,
Yeah.
and there were miraculous things that happened even even in that circumstance. Now, I have to ask you this.
Yeah.
We can edit it out if you don't
Yeah.
want to share
Sure.
it, but I'm just going to ask you because
Okay.
I've known you for a while,
Yeah.
and there's one story that you always allude to,
Mhm.
but you never really explain, and that's your near-death experience. Does your
Oh,
near-death experience have anything to do with your faith? Or did you have no faith before that?
no.
And then all of
So
a
I
sudden
can
you did.
explain that everything is quite clear in my life. I come from two generations of Christian Presbyterian ministers, and before that are known to be samurai warriors on my mom's side. And the way I view samurai warriors, from my understanding, is that they're very spirited people. Um, one of the virtues of being a warrior, samurai warrior in the Japanese culture was a sense of courage. And I'm sure there's pride, but I like to look at it more like a standpoint of courage. My grandfather was a very courageous man. I don't know my great grandfather very well, but as a little child, I used to revere my grandfather. Um, I know this is again going into paranormal um, side of this conversation, but whenever I would see my grandfather and he would come in, he would open the door and be in Japanese. He's like, Sarah-chan! And I always saw the white light around my grandfather.
Hmm.
And I'm what you would call an energy person. I'm very sensitive to energy. And I'm sure everybody is sensitive to energy in one way or another. They always say if you walk into a room and full of angry people, anybody can feel like sense that there's anger in here. At the same time, on the same token, you know, people who are empathetic, if somebody's really sad, you can feel it, right? Well, in the same token, I felt like my grandfather was a holy man. Like he just had this white light around him. And so one of the things I always wanted to emulate or not think a person was my grandfather. I wanted to be as holy and radiant as my grandfather. So ever since I was a little kid, I would say 4 or 5 years old, I always told my parents I want to be just like my grandfather, whatever that means in my concept of whatever he's doing. And so I just wanted to become a holy person or a
Right.
minister or even a nun. I just don't like the word nun, maybe because
Right.
there's a lot of pejorative association with that. But I wanted to find God or whatever that means. At age 5, I asked my parents, why are there war in this on this planet? And
Sure.
my one of the explanation I got was religion, like religious wars. And as soon as I found out, I realized I don't want to be part of a religion, but I wanted world peace. And somehow in my little 5-year-old mind, I figured that world peace starts with myself and that I can't have battles within myself. I need to become peace. And then around the same time, I got fixated with the concept of infinity. And I would walk around first grade. We would all walk to school with my friends. And I would say to my friends, so what do you think of infinity? And my friends were, as you can see, it's not a kind of subject you talk about when you're 7 or 6. So my friends thought that I was really weird. My family started calling me the alien in my family. They thought whenever I would talk about infinity and God, that I was just bizarre. So
Wow.
it was something that I always wanted since I was a little kid. And my trajectory and my purpose has never deviated. I never wanted to be a concert pianist. I wanted to just be a holy person since I was a little girl. And I wanted to embrace infinity and become infinity. So that's always been my goal. And everything is kind of an accident or a variation or something I'm doing in the world, but it's still not the greatest thing I'm doing.
Okay. You didn't answer. You
Oh,
didn't
wait,
answer.
what was
You
the
didn't answer the
question?
question about the near-death experience.
Oh, because I'm so sorry. Yeah,
No, but
the near-death experience, it was not the beginning of my spirituality. So
right.
that
That I get
story,
that
like
from what you
that
just
part,
said.
okay. However, the near-death experience reinforced and validated my
Okay.
spiritual view of the world. And the near-death experience at age 25, I found myself waking up on a Thursday afternoon at 1 p.m. after I was like unconscious for like 4 or 5 days. Um, and I have permanent memory loss from that time. And it took me 2 years of rehabilitation, natural means with my parents, at my parents' house to be able to function again, and another 10 years to feel like I can live a normal life. So, and
Wow.
then when I woke up in intensive care unit at age 25, I heard a voice. The first and the last time I've ever heard a real voice. And it was like a booming voice of God. When I woke up and I saw the clock, it was 1 o'clock. I literally heard these words: I am giving you a second opportunity to live, to learn more about God. It was
Amazing.
just like literally from the right
Yeah.
side, a
Yeah.
booming voice.
Yeah.
And then, interestingly, when my parents came to see me, I saw their aura around them. And then after that, I became very psychic, per se. Psychic abilities, like knowing things that you're not supposed to know. Like my sister and I'd be walking down the street, Newbury Street, and we would run into a friend of hers that I've never met. And before she would say this person's name, just an example. I'm going to change the name. She would be like, this is, and then before she says this is, finish the sentence, I'll be like, oh yeah, that's Jack.
Right.
And then when I would hear me saying who this person's name is, and then they would be like, how do you know? I've never met you. And my sister would look at me like, how do you know his name? And I said, I don't know. It just came out of my mouth. Or I would have dreams about my brother having a boy, a baby boy. And then I would call my brother and be like, hey, I feel like you're going to have a baby boy. 9 months later, they have a baby boy. Like things like that
Yeah,
started
sure.
happening.
I would call you an empath, I guess.
Empath, sure. Empath is a person who can feel people's energy,
Right.
but I had more like psychic abilities to be able to see what's going on with people or names or
And do
yeah.
you still have those psychic abilities, or
Actually,
did they
they
fade?
faded
They faded.
when I became more in my body. I had a lot of physical problems that had to be fixed, and I ended up going to a lot of healers, and these healers like really took away my problems. And the more in body I became, the less the psychic ability. So they kind of faded away.
Right.
But now I know more like intuitively
Yeah.
just by conscious meditating practice that I have.
Let's go back a little bit. You have a love-hate relationship with the piano. You
Mhm.
established that. And I knew that anyway, because again,
Okay.
I've known you for a while.
Right.
Spirituality is your goal, is your thing.
Yeah.
Has it ever occurred to you that through the piano is the way that maybe you're meant to, or one of the ways that you're meant to achieve your greatest spirituality?
You're actually completely right about that. It is a love and hate relationship because of not having a choice when I was younger.
Sure.
And I think every human being longs to be able to choose. And as a child, when you don't have choice, it feels disempowering. And that's where my negative feelings towards piano could be. However, in hindsight, and recently, about 10 years ago, or maybe less, I put out a video talking about how the piano actually could be a gateway towards my 88 infinity. I call it 88 infinity approach because piano happens to have 88 keys. And if you turn around eight, eight is infinity, the symbol of infinity, right? And it's also 88, right, which is like apparently a very auspicious number in Chinese numerology. But eight to me, sideways is infinity. And what are the chances that it's double infinity, right, on the piano?
Sure.
And also, when I was in college trying to develop as an artist, I felt like I needed to develop an organic sonic resonance with the every note I was playing on the piano, because I felt like ultimately, if you wanted to be a great artist, you don't want people to hear you pressing on these keys. That's just a very surface mechanical thing you're doing. Ultimately, people will be touched if every sound you're making at the piano is filtered through you as a sonic musician. So I kind of went through a long imagery process where every note I was playing was within my body. However, when I was doing this, I realized that I was resonating more with the higher octaves of the piano, naturally, because I'm a woman. And I realized I had a harder time embracing the lower half of the piano, because it's where if you were to sing it, you would have to be a man to be able to sing that low. Right. So I went actually through a process, a deliberate process where I would try to play composers and repertoire that emphasize the lower half of the piano, like Bartok and Brahms. And I would imagine actually that I was Brahms. I would imagine I was a man. I would imagine that I was a man playing the piano. And then sure enough, just that imagination alone allowed me to embrace the lower half of the piano. So I've gone through this process. And when I made this video, I said, piano is actually the perfect musical instrument to help you embrace your masculine and feminine sonic range. And by embracing the masculine and feminine sonic range, you're actually becoming, you're expanding who you are as a human being. You're transcending your gender. And the keyboard, the piano, has a range that's even larger. It goes beyond human range. So, kind of from my comic standpoint, I said, "Oh, so that does that mean that I'm turning into an alien because the piano is capable of producing sounds that's beyond human range?"
Right.
So it kind of, the video ended up kind of comically because I said, "Okay, so I've embraced my masculine and feminine sonic range, but because it goes beyond, maybe I'm turning into an alien."
Thanks for joining us on What Do You Want to Do? Next week is part 2 of my 3-part interview with Sarah Infini Takagi. Don't miss it.